So now the second most important key development was the dilemma of education. When I use a word called dilemma here, dilemma means where you are confused, what has to be done, what action has to be taken, whether we should go towards the left or towards the right. When you are confused like this, that kind of state is called as dilemma. The dilemma of education in Vietnam. When we talk about the dilemma of education in Vietnam, what is the problem of education in Vietnam? Let us take the first basic requirement of the colonial master. We all know the colonial master was French, or France language is French. So French people want labor. Labor also, which kind of labor they want? Educated labor. The educated labor at very less cost they want. So if you give the French education to the Vietnamese people, the Vietnam people will learn French, and once if they learn French, they may read the books of French Revolution, they may get the ideology of understanding of the outlook of the world. So that would be resulting in growing of the anti-colonial movements and would obviously put away French from there. So the question is whether we have to introduce the French education or not. Second major factor is, in Vietnam, the influence of the China is more. The traditional way, the primary dressing style, the language skills, all these things are influenced more by Chinese people. So in order to dismantle China's influence, we need to break Vietnam's traditional backdrop and bring modern development for them. If you want to bring modern development for Vietnam, it is compulsory and mandatory to introduce a new language through which a new culture, new system, new traditions have to be taught for them. So if you want to introduce, there is a possibility of getting Vietnam people learning French very well and would be obstructing, or tomorrow they may raise a national movement against the colonial masters. If you do not educate them on the new language, new culture, new tradition, the influence of China, which has been traditionally there from hundreds of years, would be troubling the French people in the day-to-day administration to rule them. So what is the solution for this? This situation is appropriately described as a dilemma of education. Whether we should give education for them or not, or whether we should stop educating them in French. Why the people are started to thinking about educating the people? Because the initial motto of the European countries is to civilize other countries. Civilizing mission. What is a civilizing mission? The civilizing mission is a process of educating, nurturing, developing the Asia and the African countries by the European countries. It is also known as white man's policy. Later turned as burden. So, as Britishers have civilized the Indians in the history, what we have discussed earlier, in the same manner, the French people also want to civilize the Vietnamese people, want to dismantle the existing traditional barriers and want to bring them to educate to a new language, new culture, new traditions, and at the same time, they had many issues that has to be addressed very seriously. So the dilemma and their mission of civilizing them. So when you introduce a new religion, when you introduce a new concept, when you introduce a new dressing style and all, at the cost of dismantling the original existing native cultures, what would be the native culture stand? Obviously the native culture people would resist that, but These people are strongly intended to change the old pragmatic tradition because that is an outdated policy. The native style, what is one being followed by the Vietnamese people, is an outdated one. They have to switch on to the new modern developments. So it's compulsory for them to learn and to understand the modern technology, modern understanding, modern way of dressing, modern way of combing their hairs. All these things have to be understood. So this is the main ideology. Now moving on from the dilemma of education to the steps taken by the French government. French government decided to give education to all the people in the Vietnam to break the influence of China, to break the barriers between the China getting connected to the Vietnamese. So to have a new look for Vietnam, French has been introduced to the people of Vietnam. But if French is introduced to the Vietnam people, as Vietnam people are very new to the language, they would not be able to understand anything. So in the primary sections, like up to grade 5, they decided to give education in the Vietnamese language. In the higher schools, they would be providing education in the French language. So you may get a doubt. Oh, obviously the initial fear what the French people were afraid, like though we are civilizing them, they are not ready to give the French citizenship or not ready to have the Vietnamese people fighting for the revolt or independence struggles, because they should not get educated to the French revolution movements or any other revolutions in the world. So the initial fear of people getting more knowledge about the French would obviously result in the destruction of the French rule. And the other major factor what would be affecting for them is that the people, those who came from France and settled here as a teachers, workers, accountants and various other jobs because of their language proficiency of French, now there is a fear for them that they may also lose their jobs. So checking out these possibilities, the French governance or government decided to have primary education in Vietnam language and the higher education in the French language. But in 1725, out of 17 million people, in 1825, out of 17 million people who have registered, only 400 people have been qualified by grade 10 or have been given the certificate of passing from the higher classes. This means that the exams are being made very tough and they were forced to get failed because they do not get any kind of jobs because they are not living out of the school. And there is no possibility of these people getting jobs because they already failed. And there is no threat for the jobs who came from France and settled here as the teachers, accountants or any other jobs. That's the first major possibility and the action plan what they have implemented. The second one is up to grade 5 when they were teaching the Vietnamese language. So they would not be proficient not only in the Vietnamese language but also when they are getting initial advantages of French language. Whoever gets qualified will be given the French citizenship. So they do not want to give citizenship for everybody. So they restricted the number to very less number. So all these efforts were made by the French people in order to arrest the growth of Vietnamese, but on the brand name of civilizing the people.
If you like this video, please give a thumbs up. Please subscribe to our channel to get more videos on CBSE syllabus.